I was a chubby kid, and that's why I got into fitness so early. I don't, I think it's either kids that are rail thin, skinny, or chubby, like
I was,
kind of in the middle.
I was a chubby kid.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I was teased. I was teased by my friends though. Like I need to make that clear because I had one person say, "Oh man, I was bullied really too. Almost want to commit suicide." And I was like, "Oh no, I bullied's a strong term, but being the butt end of the joke with all my friends for sure. Like I hung out with the cool kids, but I was always the fat kid they made fun of, right? And they did it in a joking fashion, but it hurt my feelings, of course, right? And so I experimented with alcohol when I was 13 years old, and it was like taboo. We don't do that. I come from my parents didn't drink. We come from a very religious Christian family, and so I didn't. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. But of course, I'm 13. It's called peer pressure, and so I cave. And I remember when that alcohol hit me. I remember how bad it was. Jack Daniel's whiskey, and I remember thinking, why would adults drink this on purpose?
Right.
And about 20 minutes later, when it hit me, I was like, this is the best shit ever. So what happened? It allowed me to just instead of my friends making fun of me, they were laughing with me instead of at me. I started imitating, not to date myself, but like Chris Farley, Van Down by the River, and Saturday Night Live skit, the Matt Foley, and they were laughing, and I was like, oh, instead of making fun of me, they're laughing because I'm being funny. And that side could only come out when I would get drunk. And so we would do this here and there. We were kids, right? Whenever they could steal some from their parents. But then when I got into fitness, I started reading in these magazines how bad alcohol was for you. And I misinterpreted the information. How I read it was like, if you drink, you will lose all your muscle. As we know, alcohol is not advantageous for building muscle, but it's also, the way I read it was like fear mongering.
Right.
But it got me to stop. I quit altogether. Got really into fitness. I mean, it was my life. I'd go to school, couldn't wait to get off of school to go train back and buys or chest to try. I was all into it. I'd spend 3 hours there just talking to these older guys, picking their brain. I was obsessed, reading every magazine, got the encyclopedia of bodybuilding by Arnold. And I mean, I was all in. And in high school, beginning of my senior year, I was at a party and I always share this because I think there's these moments in our life where we look back and we remember so distinct. Like I can't remember shit about high school, but I remember this split level entry house, these shitty brown cupboards, like the red Solo cups everywhere. Cause there was jungle juice and a kegger. It was a high school party. Right. And I had a friend, give me some opiate pain pills. And this is how naive I was at the time when he offered them to me. I said, oh, I'm not in any pain. I'm okay. And he said, no, man, they'll make you feel like you're fucking drunk, but you won't have a hangover. All the bodybuilders are doing them. That's all he had to say.
Okay.
All the bodybuilders are doing them. And I was like, which isn't true, obviously, but I was like, done.
But that's for me. Yeah.
And I remember that house distinctly because when those hit me, I remember thinking I am in love. I was in love. I wanted to chase that feeling the rest of my life. I was on cloud 9. And, by this point I'm pretty jacked too, cause I got really into fitness. I, wasn't getting teased anymore. In fact, I was like the popular kid. And I ran with that shit, man. I ran with it. I loved it. I didn't use normally from the get. I was, by the time I was graduating high school, I was taking trips down to Tijuana, Mexico, and from Salt Lake City. Just give your listeners some context. It's about a 14-hour drive.
Yeah, that's
and
next
I'm telling
level.
My parents I'm going camping with my buddy's parents, right? And I'm going down to Mexico and throwing on a sombrero and driving back through the border with all kinds of narcotics in my door panels. I would take the door panels off, shove them all in there. I'd drill it back on, drive through the border, and I kept doing this, and it was idiot savant. I didn't realize the amount of federal felonies I was committing by drug trafficking.
Yeah, this is next level shit, man. I mean, this is not messing around.
And honestly, there was some ignorance was bliss. I was like, what? You just go down there, it's legal to buy, and then you just kind of sneak it back. It's not that big of a deal. And I started using them every day, some Oxycontin and like hydrocodone and I started selling drugs. And that's kind of where my entrepreneurship began. Was I started selling to all these other high schools, all these other high school kids. And when I graduated high school, I realized now how serious what I was doing. When a friend got caught down there doing the same thing I was, got caught, got put in a Mexican prison. It was all over the news.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I'm done. Never going down there again. I started to realize what I was doing was risky, and then that solidified it. So, no, man, I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to stop. no big deal. And I had heard people talk about withdrawals, but I didn't know what that meant. Because I hadn't ran out. I'd been using them every day for 5-6 months. And the day came that I ran out, and I withdrawed really hard. By this point, I was already personal training because my parents told me I needed to go to school, go to college. And I remember looking at them and saying, why the fuck would I go to college? I literally despise school. Like, it's the worst thing ever. I hate it. And they said, well, you got to do something. So I got certified as a personal trainer through NASM when I was still in high school.
Okay.
So I got a job, personal training at Valley Total Fitness, which has gone out of business, as an 18-year-old kid. And these withdrawals hit, and I had to go to work. And I was like, this is not going to work for me. So I called a friend. That friend said, I don't have anything, but my brother's here. He's got some stuff. I came over. That stuff happened to be heroin.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you, if you would have hooked me up to a lie detector test 2 days before that and asked me, would you ever use heroin? I would have said no, and I would have passed with flying colors. That was dirty. Like, I couldn't go to that level. But when you're withdrawing or sick like this and you feel so awful, it's like the flu times 10 plus anxiety. I said no at first, and then I said yes. And it was a loaded heroin syringe. So I shot up heroin just after high school for the first time. And I'll never forget, that guy looked at me and said, sorry, kid, your life's never gonna be the same.
Wow.
And I remember the way he said it was like, you're fucked. And I remember thinking, oh man, I'm just going to do this one time. Not a big deal. I'm going to see what I just had to go to work. Well, it didn't happen one time. I kept using every day, and heroin was more accessible. It was cheaper. And I continued to be addicted to that. And by the time I was 20, I ended up in my first treatment center. And I went to that treatment center and thought, okay, heroin's my problem, but I'm going to do everything else. So I got out of rehab and proceeded to keep drinking and doing all the other drugs. And it led me right back to the same spot. I'm right back to the heroin eventually. And so just to sum up, basically from 2005, since I walked into my first treatment center, till my sobriety date, which is November 20th, 2012. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. That 7-year span was just filled with incomprehensible, like, demoralization. Just, I would go on these runs of 3 or 4 months, completely ruin my life. Then something would intervene. My parents would send me to detox. They'd send me to rehab. I started getting picked up and going to jail, which was actually a good thing for me. And I would get clean for 2, 3, 4 months, and I'd actually build back my life. I'd get, I would get back in the gym. I'd look good. I'd get another good job. And then the day would come where I think I could just use one time. And this pattern went on and on. I ended up going to 6 different inpatient treatment centers, countless detoxes, 17 trips to jail, bookings in the county jail, of which I did about 20 months total, like a couple months here. And lived in my car at one point, there's so many stories in there. 5 different overdoses, like, just nuts, the insanity. And keep in mind, this wasn't supposed to happen to a guy like me. I'm the youngest of 5 from a good Christian family. Like, this, it wasn't like I was using with people whose mom, smoked crack with them, and their dad was in prison. Like, I'm like, oh, my dad's like the local bishop, which is like a pastor, like, for the Mormon church. Like,
wow.
I was like raised good. No, I just believe today it was my test, because the reaction I had when I first took those pain pills was not normal. I loved them. And the problem is my solution to my problem, which was me, became a bigger problem. And so just to fast forward and kind of, is towards the end in 2011, I finally went to jail for a full year. And they basically said, hey, we're sick of bringing you in, putting you back on probation. Then you screw up on probation. So we're giving you your time and you're done. You're scot-free. All your charges were done.
Wow.
So I did that whole year in jail. And when I got out, I really believed I was going to do better, but I wasn't actually changing in there.
You didn't have a plan. You didn't have a plan.
No, I was robbing people in there. We were getting in fights. I was gambling. Like, I was doing everything but use drugs, because in jail, drugs are not prevalent. In prison, they are, but
they're a little harder to get. Yep.
Yeah. So the behavior was the exact same, and I had no plan. I was just like, oh, I got this. I've never been clean this long. I'm good. And I got out, and within 2 days, man, I made the call, and I couldn't believe I was doing it. And it's crazy. that like it is so hard to deploy empathy to addicts because just like the evidence is so apparent, yet we do it anyway.
Right.
And I made the call and they told me all this shit, man, like through rehab, like play the tape through, and I'm doing quotes, and I played the tape through, and the tape went like this. You're going to go pick up dope downtown. You're going to do it. Hopefully you don't die. And if you don't die, you're not going to stop till something stops you.
Mm-hmm.
Like before I could be like, oh, I'm just going to do it this one time. And I still went anyways with tears rolling down my face. And needless to say, I picked up that day, and that was January 27th of 2012. And I didn't draw another sober breath until my sobriety date of November 20th. And so that was a long run for me of about 11 months because, see, my prior history was 3 or 4 months, something would intervene. And just before I got so bad, and this time my parents were done. They had helped me so much. I had robbed them. And once they knew I was using it again, they put up this beautiful thing called boundaries, and it saved my fucking life.
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah. I mean, the wanting to help, but in reality, almost enabling.
Find me a really good addict or bad addict, however you want to view it. And I'll find you someone along the way that was a really good enabler, not because they were trying to be malicious, because they loved
you. Yeah.
My mom was going to love me to death, literally going to love me to the grave, because she kept bailing me out, giving me money, doing this. And they finally said, we're done. We love you, but until you're sober, like, don't contact us. And so I ended up homeless that whole year. And I never slept on the street because I was very resourceful, but I slept in some really, really shitty places, dope houses, trap houses, which is essentially just like an abandoned house. Lots of shitty motels, just staying wherever I could and hustling and you know, was doing every drug under the sun, but for sure heroin, but got really into meth and completely lost my way. It was a dark year. I saw some gnarly shit that I don't wish upon anyone. And I'm so grateful my parents put in those boundaries. And it was because I found my bottom. Like, I hit a rock bottom that I didn't know existed. And, you know, I was 170 pounds when I got sober. I'm 215 pounds. I was so underweight. Towards the end of that year, November, it was about, you know, sometime the end of November, right before my sobriety date, my mother called me, informed me my grandpa died. And I share this story a lot because it was the turning point for me. And I tell people, sorry if you've heard it, it's the only story I got. I can't make it up any different. But she said, I want you to show up to your grandpa's funeral. And I was really sad that my grandpa died because I was supposed to see him a couple of times that year and never showed up. And it was important to me. I had enough in me to be like, dude, just show up. And she said, do me one favor, Brad, please just be okay. And I knew what that meant. What that meant was, don't be so high that you're drooling on yourself, and don't be dope sick that you're throwing up on yourself.
Did you think you could do that at that time? What? Did you think you could fulfill her wish that time, or were you just No, I was hoping to be on the front end, which was maybe a little too high, but not like totally incoherent. I knew that if I was withdrawing, because I was so physically addicted, that I would get violent withdrawals. It is ugly to watch. It looks like an exorcism is running through somebody that's like detoxing that hard. Wow. And of course that morning came, and I'd ran out of the drugs. I was sick. I was dope sick. She picked me up, and I really was like, dude, just channel the inner grit to somewhat function at this, get through this, come home, go get drugs. And I couldn't. In the car ride, I vomited all over her dashboard. Wow. And she's like, oh my, you can't go up like this. And I'm like, I know. And she said, what do we have to do? And I gave her a look, and she knew what it meant is, we got to go get drugs. And she said, you son of a bitch. She was so mad at me. My good little religious mother's taking me way out of the way to the dope house, to the dope man's house. Jesus. When we get there, just add insult to injury, I ask her for $20. Wow. Not only is she but she's buying me the drugs now, and she is so mad. And I get the drugs, and I come back out, and she says, you got to hop in the back seat. And she said, get in the back seat. We are late. We are going to be really late because we had to backtrack so much. So we start driving up the highway, and she said, just do whatever you have to do. And so I pull out the whole kit you do. It's like the spoon and lighter and needle, and it's this ugly thing. And the whole time her eyes are just staring at me in the rearview mirror. She's not even looking at the road. She's looking at me, and tears are just streaming down her face. She's not sobbing, and she's also not wiping them off. It was if I could put a picture of what heartbreak looks like, that was it. And I kept looking down, and I was trying to find a vein because they'd all collapsed, and I'm looking, and she's looking. See, my mom knew I did drugs, but my mom, of course, never watched me.
Yeah, she had no idea the extent of what that actually entailed.
What that looked like. Yeah. And she's watching her son literally kill himself. And I kept looking. I finally do it. I hit the vein. Everything instantly changes with drugs. It's the most, especially intravenous use. It's a really instantly. I felt better instantly. But normally under that state, I also am like, hey, everything's good. What's the matter? And I couldn't think it. In that moment, I looked, and my mom's she's just sobbing, not even wiping her tears. And I looked up and I said, I'm sorry. And she didn't say anything. And we didn't talk the whole ride. And the thought came to me in the back seat, very clear. It said, you got two options, man. You either need to kill yourself. And I meant it. And I wasn't suicidal. And it was very strong. Kill yourself or finally get sober. Going on another day, being a homeless junkie was not an option. And I didn't even think I could get sober. So I was like, maybe I should just kill myself. And by the grace of God, I got back that night to the shitty motel I was at, and I said a weird prayer to a God. I didn't even know if it was a God out there. It was just like, dude, if there's something up there, help me. Help me. I get in a car with the kid. The kid asked me to drive because he's too high. Turns out the car was stolen. That's why he wanted me to drive. Immediately, I get pulled over. And when those lights went off, man, it was crazy. At first, my first reaction was like, I'm screwed. I'm going to withdraw so hard. And my second thought was, it's over. Like, I'm going to jail. The guy walked up and the cop, and I'll never forget his face. I said, he goes, you know why I pulled you over? I said, yeah, the car's stolen. I don't have a license, and I'm on my way to pick up heroin. I need to go to jail.
Wow.
Like, what the hell? Wow. But I was ready, man. It was my sign. It was the universe stepping in and being like, this kid's not going to stop, and he's going to die. I was convinced I wouldn't make it to 30 at that point. And so I went to jail, and I had the most vicious withdrawals my whole entire life. I laid on that cement and just in my own vomit. I remember that it just went through my head. This is the last time you have to do this if you want to. This is the last time you have to do this.
If you want to.
If you want to. And I made it through. And they released me 30 days later. Charges were dropped. It was a weird situation. It was a family member that stole it from. And it's the middle of winter in Utah. It's December 23rd, and it's snowing. And my mom came and picked me up, and she said, but you can't come here. So she dropped me off at a recovery meeting, like an AA meeting. And I went to that AA meeting, and after it was done, everyone cleared out, but the guy who was locking the door. And I'm standing out there with a garbage bag, because that's all I had to my name was this belonging in a black garbage bag, like that you would use to put leaves in.
That's what they left you with in jail? Shoulder. I mean, that's what you left jail with?
Yeah, that's all I had. A couple pairs of shoes, a couple of toilet, like nothing. I mean, it's just this garbage bag. And like 2 pairs of clothes is it. And this guy said, hey, do you need a ride home? And I said, yeah. And he said, where do you live? And I said, that's the problem. I don't have a home. And that guy's face was like, shit. And this guy said, hey, I'll let you stay on my couch, but if you steal from me, I will fucking kick your ass. I was like, fair enough. This guy let me stay with him, made me go get a job waiting tables. He said, you need to go do something. So I did. And I waited tables, and I humbled myself, and I took the bus in the middle of winter, and I slipped on ice and shit I was never willing to do before. And I really dove into recovery. All the shit they told me at all these expensive rehabs, I finally started doing. I finally started finding all new friends and going to recovery meetings and doing the work. And shortly after, about 4 months later, I ran into a guy who I used to work for at a nutrition coaching place, and he had a brick and mortar place. And that's what gave me the idea. And so he had me come work there, and he gave me a chance, and I'm forever grateful for that guy. And that's really where my journey took off, man. And you know, today I just celebrated 9 years sober from all mind-altering drugs, alcohol, you name it. People say, are you like sober? And I go, yeah, sober, which sucks sometimes because I have to feel everything. So, and it was, dude, my life is amazing today, but it was one little step at a time. When you got a 505 credit score and you can't get shit, and you owe 32 different institutions money and hospitals, and it feels overwhelming. So if you're starting your fitness journey out there and you're like, shit, I got 80 pounds to lose, I get it. I get how that can feel overwhelming. And like, I had to just take one little chip at a time. And it's the same philosophy I apply to my clients, especially when they have a big weight loss goal. They got 100 pounds to lose or something. Is you can't think about the 100. I couldn't think about having it. Today I have I have an almost 800 credit score, and that took me 9
years to get back
money, and one little step at a time, one little step at a time, one little step at a time. And it's been a lot of work. But you know, that's my story, man. And that's why my Instagram tag is the sober bodybuilder. I've made my story very, very public, and for me, you know, it puts a little pressure on me not to fuck it up, but you know, like I said, drugs doesn't discriminate, man. Black, white, rich, poor, fitness, not fitness. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. And again, like I come from a suburb of Salt Lake City, Utah, in a good little Mormon family. Like it wasn't supposed to happen to me. So while it's hard to deploy empathy to drug addicts, like, man, it was just, I believe it was my challenge, and it was my challenge. And I'm so grateful to be here today to share that story. So, you know, in getting back in the fitness industry, when that guy gave me the job is when shit changed.